Action!
Our target is an ugly, smelly, dirty little scab of rock called Iwo Jima.
12,000 Japanese defenders in 8 square miles. They will not leave politely, gentlemen.
February 1945. One of the most crucial battles in history was the struggle for the island of Iwo Jima during the Pacific Campaign of World War II. 1/3 of all Marines lost their lives, and nearly 22,000 Japanese soldiers perished. This is their story.
Here she goes.
On the 5th day of battle, history was made with the click of a shutter, when 5 Marines and a Navy corpsman raised an American flag on Mount Suribachi. These events are brought to life in Clint Eastwood's Flags of Our Fathers, based on the international bestseller of the same name, written by author James Bradley, son to one of the 6 flag raisers.
Well, I read it some time ago, and I just liked it a lot. I thought this would be fun to make a movie out of it, though it would be very ambitious to make a movie out of. There's a lot of storylines, and that's what makes the book interesting.
Expect us to climb this?
The story is about the 3 survivors of the 6 young men who raised the flag on Iwo Jima, and it's the story of their life and what happened to them.
Captain Severance asked me who else is in that picture.
You tell them it was me?
No.
Then pick someone dead.
They don't want somebody dead. They want to ship us back to the States.
It's so easy to get caught up in historical and technical accuracy when you're making a movie like this, but ultimately what it comes down to is you're trying to achieve some sort of emotional accuracy. You're trying to convey to people the emotion that these characters were experiencing during this really unique period of our history and of their lives.
Okay. I think we got it now.
I think when you read one of the scripts that Clint's going to do, you can look at it and say, what is he thinking? You know, and then it comes across my desk and it's like, wow, I never envisioned it that way.
Let's go.
Roll sound.
This is not supposed to be a theatrically in-your-face kind of a movie. It's a very subtle movie, and yet there are some very, very dynamic things that are happening in it.
Let's go! Go! Move it on!
There's been so much written about this one battle, because it was one of the most brutal battles in the Pacific, one of the most brutal battles you've ever fought, on both sides.
I read the story, it moved me in a certain way. Read the script worked very well. I mean, it got the points of the story across, and that moved me. So I figured, well, I'll now just get out there. It's my job to just tell the story.
Senator, I'd like you to meet Corpsman John Bradley.
Doc, right?
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you,
Good
Senator.
to meet you, young man.
John Bradley was a great man, hardworking, honest, saw things very simply. One of the key aspects to Doc Bradley is he kind of was a perfectionist. He knew the contents of his medical kits inside and out, and blindfolded he could. Even in the midst of gunfire, in the middle of a battle, he was able to tune it out and just focus, have that singular focus on what his task at hand was, which was saving someone's life or doing the best he could.
First Class Private Ira Hayes. Ira Hayes is just a classic war hero who doesn't know how to deal with his emotions and the horrors of war and having to bring it back to reality.
Rainey Gagnon, he's from New Hampshire. Very clean cut, very well put together, always spiffy and sharp. He was a bit of a ladies' man. A lot of the guys were a little iffy on him, but if they wanted to pick up chicks, they went with him when they were on leave.
You actually chose the Marines because they got the best uniform?
No sense being a hero if you don't look like one.
Franklin Runyon Sousley. He's from Hilltop, Kentucky. He's 19 years old. Very fun-loving, very happy-go-lucky. Provided a lot of entertainment for the rest of the guys because he was kind of a younger brother to them, I think.
Harlan, take your men right. Watch for Bedouins. Yes, sir. Hey, what's the Bedouin? It's the guy with the camel. Jeez Louise.
Harlan Block. He was a state-ranked football player for the Westcliff Panthers, and his entire senior class that played football, they all enlisted together.
Why aren't we firing?
Navy rules. You can't fire when it's overcast.
Sergeant Mike Strank. He was Czechoslovakian born. They called him the old man, and yet he was just a kid himself.
All right, listen up, you sorry bunch of leathernecks.
We practice going over the side more, which means we ain't long for this piece of rock.
All right.
Every account of his time in the Marine Corps from veterans that spoke about him were all memories of what a great leader he was and what a good man he was. And he promised them all that he would bring them home to their mothers.
I'm promoting you to platoon sergeant.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Yeah, the trouble is, I already told my men I'd see them through this. I told them to bring them all home to their mothers, which means I already lied to half of them, can't lie to the rest.
Everyone stood in total admiration of Mike Strank whenever I interviewed him. And so there was a lot of emotion about Mike just being this great leader who helped his boys.
When we land, try not to wave this kid around too much. They got sharpshooters that are trained to look for him, and they know that if they take out a corpsman, another dozen Marines will die unattended. All right?
Okay, Mike.
The Marines had this system of the buddy-up system. Before they went into battle, what the Marines would do is find someone they kind of befriended or that had best friends within the Marines, and they would buddy up together before they went into battle.
They've been telling us we need to buddy up, and I think we make pretty good buddies.
How do you figure that?
Well, you know, in that we have a lot in common.
A lot of good humor and teasing each other, but really taking care of each other.
So why do we get dead people's hair anyway?
I'm studying to work in a funeral home.
You tell a lot of people that?
The thing about Iwo Jima is that those guys were incredibly bonded. You know, they trained together for 1 year. This is 1 year of living together, training together, knowing each other. They knew more about each other than they knew about their brothers and sisters, really. And they were out there fighting not just a war or a battle, but they were fighting for each other.
The filmmakers chose Iceland as their backdrop for the intense battle scenes in reenacting the invasion of Iwo Jima, where the actors learned firsthand about the element of surprise.
Reenacting the invasion, it means, you know, tremendous bombardment, tremendous amount of troops running up, and artillery, and machine guns, you name it, going off. But Iceland sounds like an odd choice, but it isn't. It's a geothermal volcanic island, much like Iwo is.
Any theories why they ain't shooting?
Maybe they're all dead. What do you think, Doc? You think they're all dead?
They were extremely accommodating to us there, and we were able to sort of shape the beach in the manner we wanted. And it had the unique characteristic of looking sort of the way Iwo Jima did 60 years ago.
Go! Go! Drop your packs! Go!
Having done 2 war films previous to Flags, it gave me insight into what we were about to experience once we got to Iceland. Because there was no boot camp and there was no real formal rehearsal, I knew that we would have to just hit the ground running. And I think that it was kind of Clint's idea from the beginning to have us not prepared, to have it be very much like it would be on the battlefield.
Move! Move! Move!
And they would make sure you were safe, but I think that everybody liked that element of surprise.
Action!
Your reactions were very real. I mean, when something explodes right next to you in this cloud, you're lost in this cloud of dirt and sand. It's you're not acting at that point. Your adrenaline and your emotion is kicked in just in an ambient sense, so you can't help but be affected by that environment.
Could you come this way, just swing it this way just slightly?
It's very hectic and it's combat, and that's the reality of combat, and Clint really wanted to nail that aspect of just, almost organized chaos, really, is what war is.
The bomb goes off. Rob, you got that?
It's emotional when you think what they went through. You sit there on the beaches and you can almost hear the troops coming on land and the mayhem.
I think it's fair to say that he's of the opinion that there's a sort of like an accidental spontaneity in a first take from an actor that he's very much interested in. Our job is to be able to capture that.
Good stuff, you guys. Great interview.
He likes to chase after the one take. He likes the rawness, the energy that evolves into that rehearsal or that one take. By giving yourself up for that one moment, you really breathe in who you're playing.
I've read and heard other directors of past generations say that. They always want to see what the surprise of the first scene. And sometimes I've gotten so to the point where I'll even shoot the surprise because sometimes it's so surprising that it's great.
Gangway! Gangway, let's go, gangway!
They've gone through painstaking detail to make sure everything looks authentic, from wardrobe to sets, and I can safely say that I'll probably never do a scene on a battleship out in the middle of the ocean again. And that's the great thing about Clint Eastwood. He wants to make sure it looks 100% authentic and real, and it feels like it's World War II, and it did.
Lieutenant, if you make it to the top, put this up. Yes, sir.
It is not widely known that there were actually 2 flag raisings during the Battle of Iwo Jima.
Hey, who's got rope?
A smaller American flag had been planted on Mount Suribachi after the Marines took control of the island.
Jeez, look at that.
It was later taken down so that a larger flag could be raised for all the world to see.
Captain says he wants that flag.
He wants this flag?
Yes, sir.
We just put the damn thing up.
Yes, sir.
Some kind of flag shortage?
I want you to put this one up instead.
History was made during the second flag raising, when Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal took the famous photograph.
You're going to want to see this. Nobody, except the men involved who are on top of Suribachi, knew that there had been a replacement of the first flag. And that's exactly what it was. The fact is, there was a picture of the 2 flags, the smaller first one coming down and the second one going up.
At the time that the flag was raised, it's a sort of surges, sound waves. Every noisemaker on a boat, whistles and sirens and everything you can imagine. Through binoculars, you could see it well enough to know that it was a flag up.
We were able to look from the 550-foot top of this extinct volcano, and we could see what the Japanese could see. They could see our artillery, they could see our mortar positions, they could see individual Marines moving around. That's how good the view was. So this is the compelling reason why all of this took place, why we captured Suribachi and raised the first flag.
Then as soon as it goes up, then you pan up with it.
One of the military advisors came up to me and said, I've been waiting for that moment for 25 years. You know, to actually see the first flag go up and tell the true stories about the real Marines who actually first planted the flag on top of Mount Suribachi. It humbled us all, I think, that day. We were all incredibly humbled.
I don't know. I wish I could have seen their faces.
Of the 6 flag raisers in the famous photograph, 3 survived and were thrust into the spotlight, becoming reluctant heroes to a nation in need of hope.
6 guys raising a flag over Iwo Jima. Victory is ours. You're 3 of them, right?
This was the 5th day, sir. The battle went on for 35 more.
Well, what'd you do? Raise a goddamn flag every time you stop for lunch?
How hard that must have been from shooting at another human being to shaking hands and kissing babies and having everybody know your name.
Here, the heroes of Iwo Jima.
It wasn't as easy to have everybody know your face back then.
Stadium lights come down, spotlight comes up, you get your cue, you charge up this thing with the flag, you plant at the top, you smile, you wave, you know the drill.
You want us to plant the flag on a pile of paper mache?
Hey, that's showbiz.
John Bradley was able to have a productive and successful life beyond the war. The other 2 guys weren't able really to put their lives together.
I can't take them calling me a hero. All I did was try not to get shot.
It's kind of almost like the birth of this celebrity, and it's making celebrities out of people who don't really feel that they are celebrities.
Knowing he was with you that day,
And seeing him in that photograph, I don't know why it makes me feel better, but it does. It's so silly, isn't it?
No, it's not.
They felt somewhat complex about being called the heroes from Iwo Jima when they didn't feel heroic at all. So it's a very complex set of emotions.
As far as us being the heroes of Iwo Jima, that's just not the case. We put up a flag. The pole we attached it to was heavy, so it took a number of us. We had our picture taken doing it. The real heroes are dead on that island.
During the production of Flags of Our Fathers, director Clint Eastwood became interested in not only the story of the men who fought on Iwo Jima and the famous flag raisers that survived, but in the Japanese soldiers who sacrificed their lives in order to defend their sacred island. In an unprecedented turn of events, Clint Eastwood decided to make a second film, Letters from Iwo Jima, which tells the story of the Great Battle of Iwo Jima from the Japanese perspective. Letters from Iwo Jima stars Ken Watanabe, who portrays General Kurobayashi, the brilliant Japanese commander of Iwo Jima.
I became interested very much in General Kurobayashi, who defended the island as well, so I ended up doing two pictures, one on the Flags of Our Fathers and another one that we wrote from scratch. You're looking for somebody who you think has the presence to play a man of the stature of a general, and Ken Watanabe is an actor I've admired for a long time, and he has a terrific face as well as a great presence.
感覚としてはじーっと僕たちを見ててくれたって感じですよ。だから君が思う栗林像、まあ他の俳優が思うその役の思いっていうものをただそこにぶつけるというか、そこで生きてくれれば僕は撮るよっていう。
Kurobayashi was a brilliant tactician of a sort of a modern school, much more modern than a lot of defenders of that time.
General Kurobayashi wanted to wait until as many troops and equipment had landed and crowded the beach before he opened fire.
This is based on fact. The Japanese were very smart. They built these sand bunkers and they covered them up and they put their soldiers in there with weapons, and they had these like trap doors, and the American soldiers never saw that they were hidden. They walked right into this ambush. They never saw it.
It was miserable for the Americans. Imagine how it was miserable for the other guys that didn't have the same equipment, the same access to food and water and everything. So they were an interesting group of people. You're dealing with a young man who is displaced and is conscripted to be sent over to Iwo Jima, and knowing that the odds of him getting back are going to be really remote, and then finally believing he's never going to get back. And then you see it through his eyes.
You know, Iwo Jima is America's most decorated moment because the Japanese offered such heroic resistance.
Americans were sent into the South Pacific in the war knowing that they were, hoping that they were going to come back, knowing it was going to be tough sledding. In the case of the Japanese, they were told they weren't coming back. So it's a different mentality.
They were more than willing to sacrifice their lives. We didn't want to sacrifice our lives. We wanted to fight the good fight and come through it. We wanted to live. They're willing to die.
It's not about winning or losing the war, who won or who lost. It's just about what the sacrifices they made for their country, rightly or wrongly. They made them.
There's so much heart and so much passion and the relationships between these men and their families, and you really get to know them on a very intimate level.
By and large, and when everybody's together and all of the troops, everybody knows what they're doing, and all the actors, all the men and women in the cast know exactly what they're going to do and what their participation, chances are they're going to bring to you their imaginations as well.
I just wanted to pick up those two lines at the end.
I learned so much about the sacrifice that was made by these men, about the horrors that occurred on both sides. You learn why young men fight and die, and what makes them get up, stand up, and well, the truth is they're boys.
Some of the things I saw done, things I did, they weren't things to be proud of, you know?
Mr. Spielberg said doing a war film changes you. And I think it does in some ways. You feel like boys, and these were boys, and we kind of connected on that level.
It's not that bad. You're gonna be okay. All right? Just stay with me. Look at me.
I feel a lot of responsibility to uphold some kind of honor for the guys that were actually there, and especially the guys that never made it home off of Iwo Jima.
Stop! Get the hell out of there!
Clint chooses his projects based on stories that interest him. There's really no other guiding principle. But if you look at the breadth of his work, it's touched on any subject that interests him. It's just a matter of whether or not it's a compelling story.
I was wondering if you'd be my best man.
Me? Don't you have somebody at home? A buddy you'd rather ask?
I didn't really make many. The ones who didn't go, it's hard to even talk to them.
I'd be proud to.
It's not so much about the battle. It's not a war film per se. It's really a human drama following these young men and seeing how this event changed their lives.
Boys, this was on me. To those who can't be with us.
For Letters from Iwo Jima and from Flags of Our Fathers, it's about a whole generation of people who gave sometimes the ultimate sacrifice for their country, and how the audience is supposed to take all this is up to them. You just hope that you connect along the way.
One hell of an experience.
We're just moments away from a potent History Channel premiere on the evil Nazi who masterminded the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann. His secret memoirs are opened up to reveal a man who believed that betraying the fatherland was a far worse crime than committing mass murder.